The city was hushed beneath a heavy blanket of snow. Streetlights glimmered like distant stars, reflecting off slick pavements, while the occasional gust swept tiny ice crystals into the air. At a deserted bus stop, a small figure shuffled in her oversized coat. Her hands, pale and chapped, clutched a worn tote. Her golden hair peeked from beneath a knitted cap, tangled and dusted with frost. She barely looked alive. "Mommy," whispered a tiny voice. Daniel Reed, mid-30s, rushed to the bench. His daughter, Emily, 4 years old, knelt beside the woman, offering a bear-shaped cookie with all the seriousness only a child could muster. "You need a home," Emily said softly. "And I need a mommy." The words hung in the air, fragile and weighty, as if the snow itself paused to listen. The woman's ice-blue eyes blinked, confused and wary. She pressed her lips together, trying to form a response, but none came. Only a slow, exhausted shiver ran through her body. Daniel's phone rang in his coat pocket. He had been on a call with work when he froze at the sight. Emily had a natural innocence, but she also had courage, the kind that sometimes frightened him. "Emily, come here," he said, kneeling beside her. The woman raised her hands, palms open, trying to show she meant no harm. "I didn't, she came to me," the woman whispered hoarsely. "I wasn't asking for anything." Daniel studied her carefully. Her coat was torn at the sleeves, her hands red from the cold. Snow clung to her hair. Yet something about her silence was louder than the city's distant hum. "I think we should go," Daniel muttered. He gently tugged Emily by the hand, starting to leave, but then a soft thump made him turn. The woman had tried to stand. Her knees buckled, and she collided with the metal bus stop post, collapsing to the ground. "Miss, are you okay?" Daniel knelt beside her, checking her pulse. Weak, breathing shallow, fever burning beneath her icy skin. Without thinking, he lifted her into his arms. She was shockingly light, almost fragile. Emily clutched Daniel's coat, eyes wide. "Is she going to die?" Emily asked. "Not if we get her warm," he said, voice tight with urgency. 3 blocks later, their apartment door closed behind them. The warmth hit the woman immediately, a comforting contrast to the icy city. She blinked, taking in her surroundings. The glow of the fireplace, the faint scent of cinnamon, the hum of a kettle on the stove. Emily tugged at her hand. "See? Home." The woman's eyes filled with a quiet, unfamiliar emotion. Safety, or perhaps disbelief. Daniel remained at the doorway, watching. He didn't know her story, and yet something inside him had shifted the moment she fell into the snow. Something had changed. As she leaned back on the couch, catching her breath, the faint scratching of crayons drew her attention. Emily sat cross-legged on the rug, fiercely focused on her drawing. 3 stick figures, arms linked, smiles wide. Above them in bold childlike letters, "My home." The woman's throat caught. Her name, she wasn't ready to speak it yet. And then Daniel noticed it. The faint, jagged scar along her wrist, almost hidden beneath the sleeve. Pain etched in skin. Pain that mirrored the quiet fractures he had seen in so many before her. The night fell. The city outside vanished under the heavy snow, leaving only the warmth and fragile trust inside that apartment. But as he watched her sleep, Daniel couldn't shake the nagging thought in the back of his mind. Who is she really? And what shadows follow her here? The first day of their story had ended, but the real journey, the one of healing, truth, and the fragile courage to love again, was only beginning. She was here, alive and warm, but Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the faint scar and the look in her eyes. What had she been running from? And would it catch up to her before she could stay? The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Snow pressed against the windows, muffling the city into a soft, unbroken white. Inside, warmth clung to the air, scented faintly with cinnamon and vanilla from a kettle still simmering on the stove. But beneath the comfort, tension hung, like an invisible thread, taut and waiting to snap. Emily sat cross-legged on the rug, crayons scattered like confetti around her. Her small hands hovered over the paper. Then she ventured, voice trembling with hope. "Mommy? Du You like our home? Isabel's gaze softened, but her lips didn't move. Her fingers traced the worn edges of the blanket draped over the couch, brushing the fabric as if touching it could anchor her to this new reality. It's warm, she murmured finally, her voice fragile. It feels safe for now. The last words barely reached Emily's ears, but the girl's face brightened like sunlight through clouds. The kettle whistled softly, and Isabel started blinking. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of the floorboards as Elliot moved to fill mugs, the faint thump of snow hitting the window, even the distant hum of the city streets swallowed by the snowfall. She realized, slowly, that this quiet was not emptiness. It was possibility, a chance to breathe without fear. Minutes passed. Emily colored, humming a tune that carried a childlike insistence on joy. Isabel, in contrast, stayed still, her shoulders tense, hands clasped around her knees. Every brushstroke of crayon seemed to call her attention back to her own frayed edges, the parts of herself she had tried to hide from the world. Elliot noticed. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, quietly observing. Isabel's vulnerability was subtle but palpable. A flicker of hesitation in her gaze, the tremble of her fingers when she picked up a colored pencil, a soft sigh escaping her lips when she thought no one was watching. He felt a familiar pang, remembering the weight of his own losses. Then a sudden noise broke the fragile calm, a knock at the door, muffled yet insistent. Isabel flinched, her body stiffening, eyes wide. Elliot froze, hand on the doorknob. Who was there? Delivery? Neighbor? Or someone from her past finally catching up tonight? While snow muffled the world outside, Emily glanced up, sensing the tension, and whispered, "Daddy, is it safe?" Elliot forced a calm he didn't feel. "Stay here, sweetie. Don't move." His voice was steady, but his mind raced. Isabel's hands trembled slightly, brushing against her knees. Her eyes darted to the door, then to Elliot, then back again. There was a hesitation in her gaze that spoke louder than words. Fear, caution, and maybe a little hope, all tangled together. Isabel rose slowly, moving toward the window instead of the door, as if hiding in plain sight could keep whatever came outside at bay. She pressed her palm to the glass, feeling the cold seeping through, and for a moment, she let herself imagine warmth, not just of the apartment but of belonging, of trust. Emily crawled closer, offering her small hand. "Mommy, it's okay," she said softly, a gentle anchor in the storm of emotions. Isabel allowed herself a small, uncertain smile, the kind that doesn't erase fear but acknowledges possibility. She knelt beside Emily, letting the girl's innocence remind her what life could be like beyond survival. The knock came again, louder, sharper. Isabel's body froze. Elliot moved a step forward, scanning the hallway, ears straining for the smallest clue. Every heartbeat felt heavy, like snowdrifts settling on fragile branches. And in that tense, frozen pause, Isabel realized something she hadn't let herself feel in years, that she might just be allowed to stay. Then the doorknob rattled, and everything hung in silence. Another knock, harder this time, shook the apartment. Isabel froze, heart hammering. Snow pressed against the windows like frozen whispers, holding the city in a tense, silent pause. Warmth clung to the walls, scented faintly with cinnamon and vanilla, but it did nothing to chase the sudden chill curling in her chest. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of paper sounded magnified, like the building itself was holding its breath. Isabel sank to Emily's level, fingers brushing the girl's curls, holding on to this fragile bubble of safety. Inside, her chest tightened, storm clouds of memory and fear pressing in. Emily's small eyes searched hers, wide and curious, sensing something she couldn't name. "Daddy, is it someone from before?" Her whisper trembled, innocent and brave all at once. Isabel wanted to soothe her, but words stuck in her throat, tangled with her own dread. Elliot moved first, silent, measured, his hand hovering near the doorknob. A cold gust followed the door's slow swing, scattering a loose sheet across the floor. Isabel's breath hitched, the paper fluttering like a warning. The hallway beyond was dim, shadows pooling in corners, hiding the unknown. Every instinct screamed caution, Every memory whispered, "Don't let them in." Half hidden by shadows, a figure lingered. Familiar. Not threatening, yet but enough to send a shiver straight through her spine. Who was this ghost from her past? Isabel's. Fingers clenched into fists. Her pulse quickened. Every heartbeat echoed in the quiet apartment. Elliot's voice was firm low. "Who are you?" His gaze swept the hallway, then back to Isabel, protective, ready. Emily clutched her mother's dress, trembling, small fists curling into the fabric. Isabel noticed every tiny motion, the shallow breaths, the darting eyes, the subtle twitch of lips pressed into tension. The man's eyes flicked between Isabel and Emily. I'm from your past. From before. Everything went wrong." His words hung cold and heavy, like fog freezing in place. He shifted slightly, unsure whether to step closer or retreat, each micro-movement loaded with unspoken history. Isabel's hands curled tighter. She wanted to shut the door, to retreat into warmth that now felt fragile like glass. But something in the visitor's eyes, regret, maybe truth, made her hesitate. Could she finally confront the past without losing the present? Elliot stepped slightly forward, shielding Emily. His eyes locked on Isabel, silent, understanding passing between them. She needed to face this, but on her own terms. Emily's voice rang out again, steady despite tremor. "Mommy, you can face it. You're not alone." A heartbeat passed 2-3, the silence thickened. Isabel's chest constricted, every breath shallow. Then a soft scuff in the hallway. Not him. Someone else, or something else, moving just beyond the door. Her mind raced. Had the past followed her here? Or had she drawn a new danger entirely? The visitor's hands twitched, a subtle sign of unease. "I didn't come to hurt you. Just to explain. Please." His words were careful, hesitant, but the tension in the air made them almost menacing. Isabel drew in a shaky breath, mind a storm of fear, curiosity, and fleeting hope. Elliot's jaw tightened, protective stance unwavering over Emily. The apartment's warmth felt fragile, like a candle in the wind, yet snow pressed harder, muffling the world and amplifying every sound. The paper flutter, shallow breath, scuff in the hallway. Silence stretched. Isabel's gaze darted to the shadows beyond the door. The past had arrived, but the real danger? She wasn't ready to see who, or what, was waiting. Her pulse drummed in her ears, each beat a countdown to revelation. Every creak, every whisper of wind, every flinch of movement became a signal. The fragile safety inside could shatter at any moment. The door creaked again, slow, deliberate. Isabel's heart lurched, every nerve taut. Snow clung stubbornly to the windows, muffling the world outside, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Warm air, cinnamon-scented, felt suddenly fragile, threatened by the tension. Pressing in from the hallway, Emily hid behind Isabel's legs, small hands clutching her mother's dress, eyes wide with silent questions. Isabel's fingers lingered on the doorknob, trembling slightly. "Who's there?" she asked, voice a whisper, but strong enough to carry through the tense air. Her chest felt tight, lungs burning with anticipation. Every instinct screamed caution. Yet curiosity clawed at her. The figure in the hallway stepped forward, half lit by the dim overhead light. Familiar yet altered by years of absence. Eyes hard with history, but shadows of regret softened their edges. "Isabel," he began, voice low, measured. "We need to talk. There are things you don't remember, things you must know." A gust of wind followed the slight movement, scattering a loose sheet of paper across the floor. Isabel's gaze darted down, catching the paper's edge fluttering like a small warning. Emily's breath hitched. Isabel's chest tightened further, pulse drumming. Every detail mattered. The paper, the visitor's hesitation, the subtle tilt of his head. "Talk about what?" Isabel's voice shook, though she tried to anchor herself. The past clawed at her, whispered threats, and the visitor's presence only magnified every unease. She glanced at Emily, small, trusting, and unaware of the full weight of what was coming. The man's eyes flicked to the child, softening just slightly. "It's about your life before. You ran about the choices you didn't make, and the ones someone else made for you. His words hung, heavy, almost tangible in the tense air. Isabel's hands clenched the doorknob, knuckles white. A scuff echoed from the hallway floor. Isabel froze, heart hammering. Not him. Someone or something else? Her mind raced. Had the past followed her, or was a new danger waiting? Every shadow seemed alive, stretching toward her, carrying silent threats. Emily's small voice broke through. Mommy, it's okay. You can face it. Her courage, so pure and childlike, pierced the tension, igniting a flicker of resolve inside Isabel. She exhaled slowly, drawing in warmth and determination, a fragile shield against the cold of uncertainty outside. The visitor's hands twitched, subtle signs of his own unease. I know this is hard, he said, almost pleading, but hiding only keeps you from knowing, from protecting the ones you love. His gaze lingered on Emily, then returned to Isabel. Every micro-expression, every hesitation loaded with untold history, demanded attention. Minutes passed, or was it seconds? Time seemed suspended, each heartbeat exaggerated. Isabel's eyes flitted to every detail. The fluttering paper, Emily's trembling fingers, the subtle shadow moving in the corner. She could feel her own tension mirrored in the apartment's fragile stillness. Finally she spoke, voice stronger now. I'm listening. But one wrong word, her words, hung in the air, a promise and a warning. The visitor nodded slowly, understanding. This moment, the threshold between past and present, was delicate, fragile as the snow outside, yet charged with the weight of inevitable revelation. Silence stretched. The snow pressed harder against the windows, muffling the city beyond. And Isabel realized, whatever truth awaited, it could change everything. The visitor exhaled, ready to begin. The apartment seemed to shrink around them, every creak and rustle amplified. The past had arrived. Not quietly, not gently, but with the force of everything Isabel had tried to leave behind. The visitor's eyes held a storm, a mix of guilt, urgency, and something darker. Isabel's own heart raced, a pulse she could almost hear in the quiet apartment. Snow pressed relentlessly against the windows, muffling the city, leaving only the fragile cocoon of warmth inside. Emily's small hand clung to Isabel's, her trust unwavering, a tether anchoring her. Mother to courage. I need you to remember, the man said, voice low, deliberate, heavy with the weight of things unspoken, things you tried to bury, things that someone wanted erased. His words hovered, cold yet precise, slicing through the comforting warmth of the room like thin blades of frost. Isabel's chest tightened. Memories she had locked away clawed at the edges of her mind, blurry fragments of fear and confusion threatening to spill. She could feel them, shapes of moments she didn't want to face, choices forced upon her, the echoes of voices that once controlled her life. Her fingers trembled, brushing Emily's hair as if protecting the girl from the past itself. The visitor stepped closer, shadows flickering across his face in the dim light. Do you remember the night your father left? His words hung in the air like smoke curling around the corners of the apartment. Isabel's jaw tightened, a small gasp escaping her. Emily's eyes widened, sensing the weight of words too heavy for her young heart. A sudden creak echoed from the hallway outside, sharp and deliberate. Isabel froze, body coiled like a spring, listening. Not him. Someone else? Or had the past itself found a way in? Creeping silently behind the door? She swallowed hard, each breath shallow, mingling with the faint scent of cinnamon and vanilla that had once felt safe. The man's gaze softened, but only slightly. It's not just memories, he said, voice careful. It's warnings. You survived, Isabel. But they're still out there. And they know where you are. The words struck like ice, piercing warmth and hope alike. Her hands clenched Emily's a little tighter, anchoring both of them in this fragile moment. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Every sound seemed amplified. The flutter of a paper on the floor, the faint scuff of shoes against the hallway, Emily's quiet breathing. Isabel's mind raced, cataloging each detail, Each subtle shift of shadow, each flicker of the visitor's expression. Nothing could be ignored. I don't understand, Isabel whispered, voice shaking yet resolute. Why now? Why me? Her words trembled with a mix of fear, curiosity, and stubborn defiance. Because the past doesn't wait, he said, stepping even closer, shadows swallowing half of his figure. Because what was taken from you, they want it back. And if you don't act, it won't just be you who suffers. The apartment seemed smaller now, walls pressing in snow, muffling the world outside, amplifying every heartbeat. Emily tugged at Isabel's sleeve, voice small but unwavering. Mommy, you can face it. Her innocence, raw and unfiltered, was a spark in the darkness, igniting a flicker of courage within Isabel. She straightened, chest tightening but steadying, eyes locking on the visitor. Every microbehavior, every unspoken threat, every pause between words, she absorbed it. All. Silence stretched, heavy and deliberate, as the snow pressed harder against the windows. Isabel knew this. Nothing would remain the same. The past had arrived not gently, not with warnings, but with the weight of inevitability. And now she had a choice: face the shadows lurking in her memory, or let them consume everything she held dear. A heartbeat passed to 3. Isabel inhaled sharply, eyes narrowing. The visitor exhaled, shadows deepening around him. The room waited, suspended in tension, every second a slow drumbeat toward revelation. Somewhere beyond the snow and the muffled city, something or someone was moving. The past was here, and the truth finally was about to strike. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. Snow beat softly against the windows, a muffled rhythm that contrasted sharply with the storm raging inside Isabel's chest. Every shadow felt alive, stretching and twisting across the walls as if the past itself had taken form. Emily clung to her mother's side, tiny hands gripping a sleeve, eyes wide with unspoken fear. The visitor's gaze was sharp, calculating, a mixture of warning and urgency. Isabel, he said, voice low, deliberate, each syllable falling like a stone into the quiet room. You can't run from this anymore. Every choice you made to hide, every memory you tried to bury, it's caught up with you. And tonight, it comes for all of us. Isabel's breath hitched. Her chest tightened, a storm of adrenaline, guilt, and fear pressing against her ribs. She could feel the weight of every decision, every unspoken truth crushing her from the inside. Her hands trembled, brushing Emily's hair, holding on as if sheer force of will could keep the past at bay. A sudden noise, a scraping at the far end of the hallway, made her heart leap. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Not the visitor. Someone else. Or something else. The city outside was silent, swallowed by snow, but inside danger prowled unseen, yet unmistakably near. Isabel's eyes darted to every corner, every flicker of shadow, searching for a clue, a hint of what was coming. The visitor took a step closer, shadows stretching across his face. They knew you'd try to protect her, he said, voice dropping almost to a whisper. That's why they're here. That's why they never let go. Isabel's jaw tightened. Memories flashed unbidden, dark alleys, cold stares, doors that slammed in fear. Moments she had hidden from, locked away now, clawing at her mind. Emily tugged at her sleeve, small and insistent. Mommy, we can face it, she said, voice firm, but with the softness of innocence. Her words struck Isabel like lightning, igniting a spark in the depths of fear. She swallowed, taking a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in her hands, the quickening of her pulse. A paper slipped from the counter, fluttering to the floor like a silent alarm. Isabel's eyes followed it, each second stretching, heavy and deliberate. The visitor watched her carefully, shadows hiding his expression. It's time, he said. You can't wait any longer. They've been patient, but patience is ending tonight. Her mind raced. Every step she had taken, every lie she had told herself to feel safe, led to this moment. The warmth of the apartment, the cinnamon, the vanilla, the quiet lull of domesticity, felt fragile, almost absurdly fragile. Outside, snow pressed on, indifferent. Inside, tension coiled like a spring, every heartbeat a drum of warning. Then a sound. A footstep. Not the visitor's. Not Emily's. Something darker moving in. Rhythm with the pounding of Isabel's heart. Her breath caught. She felt it. A presence, a shadow sliding along the hallway, reaching, waiting. Fear and determination collided, a storm of instinct and desperation. Isabel straightened, her gaze hardening. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to protect Emily at any cost. But the past would not be ignored. The shadows had arrived. And she realized, with icy clarity, that tonight would not be about survival alone. It would be about confronting every hidden truth she had buried, every secret she had carried, and the danger that had waited in silence all these years. A heartbeat passed 2-3. Isabel's eyes narrowed. Snow whispered against the windows. Shadows deepened. And from the darkness, the first truth stepped forward. The apartment trembled in silence, the snow outside a soft, white curtain hiding the world. Isabel's breath caught as shadows shifted in the corners of her vision, stretching and folding like living things. Emily clutched her hand, small fingers gripping tight, eyes wide, silently asking for protection she could barely offer. The visitor's presence was steady, unnerving in its calm. "It's time to face it," he said, voice low, each word measured. "All the secrets, all the choices, you can't hide from them anymore." His gaze lingered on her, sharp and insistent, as if he could see the very storm of memory raging in her mind. Isabel's chest tightened. Every step she had taken to shield Emily, every lie she had whispered to herself to survive, felt fragile, almost laughably insufficient. Memories clawed their way forward. The cold alleys, the slammed doors, the eyes that watched when she thought no one was looking. They were all here now, pressing on her from every shadow. A soft scraping echoed from the hallway. Not the visitor. Not Emily. Isabel froze. Her pulse raced, matching the fluttering of a loose sheet of paper that drifted to the floor, its edges trembling like a warning. Shadows moved with intent, deliberate, unseen but threatening. Her hands trembled slightly as she brushed Emily's hair back, grounding them both in a fragile moment of safety. Then the visitor stepped closer, dark eyes catching hers. "They knew you'd try to protect her. That's why it's here. That's why it waited." His words cut through the room like ice, heavy and deliberate. Isabel swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of every secret she had buried, the guilt that had followed her like a second skin. Emily's voice broke the tension, small but fierce. "Mommy, we can face it together." Her innocence collided with her courage, striking Isabel with the force of clarity. She took a steadying breath, gripping her daughter's hand, feeling the trembling subside into a cold, resolute determination. A sudden noise, a deliberate knock from the hallway, made Isabel's heart skip. The visitor's eyes remained fixed on her, expression unreadable, while shadows danced like whispers along the walls. "It's here," he said simply. "The truth, it won't wait any longer." Isabel straightened, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the apartment with calculated precision. The warmth of the room, the scent of cinnamon, the muted comfort, felt fragile, almost unreal. Outside, snow muffled the city, indifferent to the human drama unfolding inside. But within these walls, tension coiled tight, every heartbeat a drum of warning. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. Familiar. Fear and recognition collided in Isabel's chest. Every instinct screamed, "Run, protect Emily, hide." But the figure stepped forward, and with each motion, the unspoken truth became undeniable. "Isabel," the voice said, soft, yet piercing, carrying years of betrayal, regret, and unspoken history. "I never stopped looking for you. And now you can't ignore me anymore." Her breath caught, chest tightening as the room seemed to shrink around them. Shadows lengthened, the snow pressed closer against the windows, and every sound, the scrape of paper, the rustle of clothing, the shallow breaths of a child, became magnified, amplified, into a chorus of tension. A heartbeat passed 2-3. Isabel's eyes narrowed. The past had arrived, Not just as memory, but as living presence, pulling at her, challenging her, demanding acknowledgement. Emily squeezed her hand, silent and unyielding. Isabel inhaled sharply, a storm of fear and courage intertwining. Tonight, she would confront the truth. Tonight, nothing could remain hidden. The shadows parted, and at last, the first revelation stepped into the flickering light. The storm had passed, but the silence that replaced it carried its own weight, thick, almost suffocating. Each creak of the old apartment, each muted footstep in the hall, sounded amplified, echoing like a warning. Outside, snow clung stubbornly to windows and bare branches muffling the city, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Daniel sat near the frosted glass, flashlight resting unused beside him. His eyes scanned the street below, but he saw nothing beyond white blur. He said he'd return tomorrow, he murmured. Do you believe him? Isabel didn't answer immediately. She stared at her own reflection, fractured by streaks of frost on the window pane. In the glass, she saw a stranger, a woman hollowed by memory, her lips trembling despite the warmth of the apartment. Belief doesn't change what's coming, she whispered, voice fragile. It only steels you to face it. Emily lay asleep on the couch, clutching the crumpled drawing she had made earlier. 3 figures beneath a bright sky. Family, security, innocence. Everything Isabel feared she might never protect again. A sudden gust rattled the window, and the kettle on the stove let out a shrill whistle. Isabel poured the steaming water into a mug, watching the vapor curl into ghostly spirals. Her fingers traced the rim. When he knocked, she said softly, I felt the past breaking through, like cracks in glass, like it never left. Daniel's voice was careful, probing. Who is he, Isabel? She turned slowly, eyes dark pools reflecting fear and memory. Someone I trusted once. Someone I ran from. Someone who never really let go. A soft scuff echoed from the hallway. Isabel froze, chest tightening, as if the walls themselves were pressing inward. Not him. Someone else, or something else moving. Just beyond the door. Her mind raced. Had the past followed her? Or had she drawn anew? The sound came again, closer, deliberate, almost playful, yet laced with menace. Isabel. Her heart leaped. Emily slept peacefully, unaware, while Daniel's hands hovered near the doorframe. Isabel's throat constricted. The apartment's warmth suddenly felt fragile, like a thin veil over an encroaching storm. Daniel grabbed the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dim apartment. Stay behind me, he whispered. The light swept across the room. The rug, the couch, the open pantry door. Then it caught on. Something small, unexpected. A box wrapped in old, damp paper, sitting neatly on the counter. Neither had noticed it before. Isabel approached, hands trembling. The paper was cold, sticky from moisture, its ribbon loose as if tied in haste. She peeled it away, revealing a music box, gold, ornate, delicate. The kind you'd find hidden in an attic for decades. She wound the key. Click. The lid opened, and a haunting melody filled the room, delicate, yet piercing. It was familiar, the lullaby she used to sing to Emily before life fractured. Tears pooled in her eyes. It's his, she whispered, voice breaking. He remembered. The notes lingered, wrapping around the apartment, threading through shadows, brushing against memory like a phantom hand. Daniel remained frozen, the flashlight shaking in his grip. Then 3 deliberate knocks on the door. Slow, heavy, distinct. Each one resonated in the silent apartment, shaking the walls and the air alike. Isabel's pulse thundered in her ears. She glanced at Emily, sleeping innocently, and then at Daniel, whose jaw had clenched tight. She stepped forward, each movement measured, silent but deliberate, as if the floorboards themselves might betray her. The last echo faded. Silence returned, thicker, almost viscous. And then a voice, low, calm, undeniable, spoke from the other side of the door. It's time to talk, Isabel. The words hung in the air, carried by the snow outside, pressed against the windows like a whispered threat. Every heartbeat stretched painfully. The past was here. Not in memory. Not in fragments. Here. Breathing. Waiting. Isabel's hand hovered over the doorknob, trembling. She could feel every layer of her life. The fear, the guilt, the love, the desperation, converging in this single moment. Outside, the snow drifted silently. Inside, time stopped. And for the first time, she wondered, could she survive what was coming next? Isabel's hand froze over the doorknob. Every muscle in her body screamed caution. Outside, the snow pressed against the glass like a white tide, muffling the city and the world. Beyond. Inside, the apartment felt impossibly small, the warmth from the kettle and fireplace struggling to compete with the chill that had seeped through the cracks of her past. Daniel's flashlight trembled in his hand. Do you want me to? No, Isabel interrupted, her voice low but firm, threaded with steel she hadn't known she possessed. I have to do this. I need to face it. Another pause. The voice outside was quiet this time, deliberate, almost intimate. Isabel, you don't have to run anymore. It hit her like a memory she had tried to bury. The same cadence, the same inflection, the way those words had once promised safety and betrayal in the same breath. Her chest tightened, a storm cloud gathering just beneath her ribs. She turned to Emily, still asleep, clutching her drawing. Her daughter's innocence anchored her. Isabel inhaled, slow, deliberate, letting the familiar warmth of the apartment fight the encroaching cold. Then she exhaled hard. I'm ready. Daniel stepped close, flashlight sweeping across the hallway, shadows dancing like silent witnesses. The visitor's presence was palpable even before the door creaked open. Tension that curled around their lungs, making each breath heavy. The door swung outward. Snow drifted in with the motion, curling around their feet, cold and intrusive. And there he was. Not threatening yet. Familiar, insacable. A ghost of promises and regrets, etched into the lines of his face, eyes searching hers with an unsettling calm. You came back, Isabel said, voice almost a whisper. Not a question. Not a plea. A statement of fact. I had to, he replied. There are things you don't remember, truths you've hidden from yourself. But hiding won't save you or her. Emily stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Isabel's hand brushed her hair, smoothing it back. Like a shield against the sudden intrusion of fear. Every instinct told her to retreat, to shield. Her daughter to run. But every fiber of her being also demanded answers. The visitor stepped closer, boots pressing into the soft snow that had drifted in. His shadow stretched long, dark against the golden light of the apartment. You think the past is gone, he said softly, but it never leaves. Not really. Not until you face it. Isabel's fingers clenched the doorframe. The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing inward. She could feel the weight of every broken promise, every moment she had failed to protect Emily, every memory she had tried to erase. And yet, beneath it all, a spark of defiance burned, a determination that no one, no fear, no past could extinguish. I'm not afraid, she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. A soft scuff came from the hallway again, subtle but deliberate. Isabel's eyes darted to Daniel, who gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Together they stepped forward, confronting the shadow that had haunted them, letting the apartment's warmth and Emily's sleeping presence bolster their courage. The visitor stopped just inside the threshold. His gaze softened, and for the first time a hint of regret flickered in his eyes. Then we begin, he said. And just like that, the apartment, once a sanctuary, once a fragile bubble of safety, became the stage for truths long buried, promises long broken, and a reckoning that would echo far beyond the snow-laden streets outside. Snow continued to drift against the windows, soft and relentless. Inside, Isabel took a steadying breath. Her hands were trembling. Her heart thundered. But for the first time she felt something she hadn't in years. The power to face what was coming, and perhaps to finally rewrite it. The apartment trembled under the weight of silence. Snow pressed endlessly against the windows, muffling the city into a soft, frozen hush. Isabel's breath came in shallow bursts, Each inhale sharp, each exhale trembling. Emily slept in her crib, unaware of the storm, pressing at the door, at the edges of their fragile life. The visitor stood in the doorway, half-shadowed, half-revealed, carrying the weight of years. Isabel had tried to forget. His eyes were storm clouds, heavy with regret, sorrow, and truths she wasn't ready to hear. The air was thick, almost solid, vibrating with unsaid words. "Why are you here?" Isabel's voice broke the silence, stronger than she felt. "After all these years, why now?" He stepped closer, the snow crunching softly under his boots, each step deliberate, measured, carrying the gravity of the past. Because the past never leaves, and it refuses to forgive you, or me, until we face it together. Her chest tightened. Memories clawed their way back. The fear, the betrayal, the nights spent running. She wanted to turn away, to hide, to collapse beneath the weight of it all. But Emily's soft, sleeping breath anchored her. She straightened, fists clenched, heart hammering, and forced herself to meet his gaze. "I'm not running anymore," she whispered. A gust of snow swirled through the doorway, spiraling around them, a cold wind against the warm apartment. Isabel's hair whipped across her face, her eyes narrowing. The visitor raised a hand, not threatening, almost fragile. Yet every fiber of his being radiated danger and longing. "Isabel, you've carried this burden alone for too long. You think protecting her means hiding, but hiding never saved anyone." His voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it carried the weight of mountains. Her hands trembled, brushing Emily's blanket as if to draw strength from the sleeping child. "And if I fail?" she asked, almost to herself. "What if facing you destroys everything I've built?" The visitor's gaze softened, a flicker of sorrow breaking through the storm. "Then we fail together, and maybe then, finally, we can heal." Seconds stretched into eternity. A soft scuff echoed from the hallway again. Isabel's pulse thundered in her ears, the world narrowing to the space between her and him. Every heartbeat was a drum, every breath a reminder of the stakes. Suddenly the visitor knelt, meeting her at eye level. His hands were open, not in threat but in surrender. "The choices we made, the fears we couldn't escape, it all ends tonight. You have the courage. I see it in you. I always have." Isabel swallowed, heart hammering. She stepped forward, snow crunching under her feet, until the space between them disappeared. Her chest rose and fell with a tremor of defiance and release. "Then let's end this," she said, voice steady, though the storm inside her raged like the blizzard outside. For a moment, silence enveloped them, a fragile pause where the apartment itself seemed to hold its breath. And then a soft, almost imperceptible smile passed between them. Recognition, regret, forgiveness, everything wrapped into a heartbeat. The snow outside swirled faster, wild and unrelenting, but inside, warmth bloomed, not from the kettle, not from the fire, but from something harder, deeper. Courage reclaimed, truths confronted, and love unbroken despite years of shadows. Emily stirred, blinking open her eyes. Isabel's hand brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, and for the first time in years, she felt whole, unshakable, alive. The visitor rose slowly, shadows melting into light, carrying with him the weight of closure, leaving the apartment, and Isabel forever changed. Outside, the snow fell relentlessly. Inside, a mother's heart beat steady, fierce, unbroken. The past had arrived, been faced, and finally, it was over.